America's the world, America's the world, nobody else does things but us.
We sing that like every day. Hello everyone, welcome to Word Funk, our 40 or 50 minute conversation laden with three-way sexual tension. I'm Leon Thomas. You can usually find me on Channel Awesome and Nerd Vice hosting Renegade Cut. With me is Johnny Maloney. You can usually find him curling and hockeying in Canada. And Austin Yorski. You can usually find him exactly 301 feet away from the home of Kevin Bacon at all times. Guys, how you been?
I don't curl or hockey, but I do poutine quite a bit.
I don't know what that means.
You don't know what poutine is? We had this conversation on the Blistered Thumbs podcast.
Really?
It's French fries with gravy and weird cheese.
Oh. Cheese curds. It's not weird cheese, it's cheese curds.
Oh. It looks delicious.
It's fucking awesome. And then people are like, no, let's put some bacon and chopped green onions on that. No, let's put some pulled pork and barbecue on that son of a bitch with chorizo sausage.
Sounds awesome.
It is awesome. I don't know why America hasn't got on this. It is so your jam. French fries, cheese, gravy, like fried meats.
Our healthcare system is still working itself out, so we have to worry about our hearts.
What do you think made it so that Canada had universal health care? Too many people were poutining to death.
So you feel we have to force the issue by making ourselves even worse off?
I'm telling you that the moment that your death rate eclipses your birth rate, that will be like, wait a minute, maybe we ought to... Of course, knowing America, they'll probably just try to legislate, the size of poutine that you'd be able to get served.
Well, we're working on it. The government made me get health insurance. I am insured now. I'm like an adult.
They made you?
Well, more or less. It's kind of...
Did someone strong-arm you? Did somebody come to your apartment door and be like,
No.
Thomas,
No.
We understand that you don't have any medical insurance? And, one of them pulls out, a rolling pin and be like, it'd be a real shame if anything were to happen to you while that was the case, Mr. Thomas.
No, in reality, my taxes would have just been slightly more complicated had I not gotten insurance. That's how it works in America now. But yes, I do have insurance now. It's pretty good. Oh, funny story. The cops did bang on my door a couple of days ago. They told me to move my car. I thought I was in serious trouble. But they were banging on my door, and I was throwing on my pants, and I had to run downstairs. I'm like, yes, and they called me by name, and I said, yeah, and they said, you need to move your car. You're okay. We're not going to tow it or anything. We'd just like you to move your car. I was like, oh, okay. I'm just parked, in my neighborhood. What's wrong? Anyway.
I was going to say, Leon, though, when you discovered it was the cops, and you're like, oh, my God, what have you been doing that instills such fear in you? Because I had the cops come looking for me a couple of months ago at, honest to God, 4:30 in the morning.
Oh.
I'm in bed, and, my phone goes off because it's hooked up to my buzzer, and I, pick up the phone, and I'm like, hello? And the guy's like, yeah, RCMP, which is our fancy initialism for police, because they are Royal Canadian Mounted Police.
Did they come on mounts?
He did not, sadly. I imagined it was too early for the horse. The horse was like, fuck off, I'm sleeping.
Fair enough.
But, yeah, they, and of course I can't, I live on, the 24th floor of my apartment building, so I can't just be look out the window and be like, is he really a cop? But I didn't want to buzz this guy into my building who's like, yeah, I'm with the RCMP. So he gives me a number to call that goes to my local police station. He gives me, a name and a case number. And I look up the phone number that he gives me on the internet, and sure enough, it's the local police constabulary. And I call them up, and I'm like, yeah, there's an officer who says he's at my front door looking at this case, and they're like, oh yeah, that's legit. I'm like, what? Huh? So I go down and see the guy in, my pajamas, and I'm not like, oh my God, maybe he's here to arrest me. But whenever anybody else talks about, the cops coming to your house, they're like, oh my God, do they know?
That's why I was asking. I always get that feeling. It happens somewhat frequently.
Are you comfortable telling us what it was about, or does the story just end there?
It was about my landlord.
Oh.
My landlord owns the apartment that I live in right now, but he rents a place that's closer to his work.
Oh.
So this is like his billing address and like his technical like permanent residence, quote unquote, right?
Okay.
So we get mail from him for him sometimes, and we just call him up and say, "Hey, there's mail." But yeah, and they were looking for him, and then I got like they asked me a bunch of weird questions about my landlord. I'm like, oh, sorry, he doesn't live here. He rents the place out to us. And they're like, I see. He's like, I see. Does your landlord seem like a guy who's pretty outdoorsy?
What?
And I'm like, I don't know.
Is he the Canadian lumberjack killer?
No. And there is no Canadian lumberjack killer.
Oh.
Yet.
Yeah, I made that up, but I honestly assumed there was one.
Nah, not at the moment.
All right.
I assume I asked you that because is he missing? Like maybe he's like lost in the woods somewhere?
If he's missing, he's been cashing my fucking rent checks every month, so...
He's just riding a moose somewhere?
Maybe he's not the Canadian lumberjack killer, but maybe the Canadian lumberjack killer got him.
Oh, that's a possibility. And some guy outside my apartment is now making a lot of noise on what sounds like a motorcycle, but I guess could be a Fiat.
So, I think we should talk about Star Trek now.
Star Trek? Why not Star
Wars?
Wars?
I mean, Star Wars, whatever.
I want to talk about Star Trek now.
That's the thing I don't know anything about, though. Help. Don't leave me alone.
All right, fine. We'll talk about Star Wars.
So anyway, we're going to talk about Star Wars right now because that's something I enjoy. I love Star Wars almost as much as I love Star Trek. It is it's not even number 2 on my list of sci-fi franchises. It's more like 1B. And as you all know, a couple of years ago, they announced that they were going to make more Star Wars movies, which both excited and terrified Star Wars fans, with the prequel trilogy still firmly in our minds. But there is some hope. There is at very least news. Today, we're recording this on Tuesday. It probably won't go up until like later this week. But today they announced something pretty cool. What we've sort of known but wasn't official is that Mark Hamill, who played Luke Skywalker, and Harrison Ford, who played Han Solo, and
Carrie Fisher, sorry about that, I blanked for a second, who played Princess Leia, are all going to be in the new Star Wars movie. We kind of assumed that. It was like a 90% going to happen. But we also know that there are a bunch of young actors. I wouldn't say unknowns exactly. Whoa, we're not done yet. We're not done yet because we're also getting Peter Mayhew.
Chewbacca is back.
Yeah, and Anthony Daniels, of course.
But anyway, a bunch of young actors are going to be in this as well. I'm really excited about a few things. Oscar Isaac, who was the star and titular character of Inside Llewyn Davis, the new Coen Brothers film, is going to be in this movie. I just finished watching it like 2 days ago, and then they announced this, and it just blew my mind. It's like, that guy, he was so good, and he can sing too. Maybe there'll be a Star Wars song that he'll sing. This is great. I was so excited when I learned this.
Hopefully he sings the Han Solo song from Star Wars Connect.
Yeah. We got Johnny. And Oscar is going to be joined by John. I really do apologize if I say this name wrong. John Boyega, and he was the star of Attack the Block. Yeah, a really great science fiction film from a few years ago. One of the songs from Attack the Block ended up being the theme song to Renegade Cut, because as I was watching Attack the Block and listening to this awesome soundtrack, I thought to myself, this is what I want Renegade Cut to sound like all the time, and that's Attack the Block. It just sounds really good and it looks really good, and he was really good in it, so I'm excited.
A lot of gravitas in that kid.
Yeah,
like he had a lot of screen presence. So
Andy Serkis is also going to be in it, but the thing that excites me the most.
Oh yes, and, I'm with you right here. I know what you're gonna say.
Max von Sydow is going to be in this movie.
It really makes me wish that his last name was actually pronounced Sydow, because then we could say Max von Sydow. Wow.
Max von Sydow is in this movie, and this excites me so much that I'm going to tell you a little story. When I learned about this news, I was sitting in the waiting room of a doctor's office, and my wife was sitting to my right. and I was trying to load the information on my tiny little phone. It's like, I said, "Hun, they announced the new Star Wars cast for the new movie," and she says, "Oh, that's cool." She kind of likes Star Wars, but isn't as thrilled about the new movies as myself. And I said, "My phone won't load," and she knew how important this was to me, so she loaded it on her phone, and she handed it to me, and I looked at it, and I looked at her, and with no shame, and a bunch of people sitting around us, and like maybe even looking at me, shake around like a nerd, I said, "Max von Sydow is in this movie." And she's like, "Who is that?" And it's like, "He's the guy from like all the Ingmar Bergman films. You know him. He was the knight who played chess with death." And he's like, "Oh yeah." So and she says, "That's great, but be quiet. People are looking at you." and I was like, "I don't care. Max von Sydow is in this movie. I wonder who he's going to play." She says, "I don't know, but I got to go now because they're calling me back." So that was my story of how I reacted to a really cool Swedish actor being in the new Star Wars movie. To me, it's like, in my mind, it's like worlds collide. When I started doing Renegade Cut, people were kind of saying, that Leon, he's a real film snob. And then when I start talking about science fiction, like a few months ago, because I wanted to make a new show, a few people said, "Wow, I didn't even think you'd like that. This seems all too lowbrow for you." I was like, no, I love science fiction. I love stuff like this. I love Star Trek and I love Star Wars. And to me, it's like the worlds have collided. It's like the Ingmar Bergman guy is colliding with Star Wars, and I'm really excited about this.
Well,
I don't know how you guys...
Come on. Let's give some, real credit to the original. I guess a number of young people won't necessarily remember this, but,
Alec Guinness?
Alec Guinness. Thank you.
Yeah, for some reason I just knew that's what you were going to say.
No, but it's true. I mean, of the entire cast of the original Star Wars, Alec Guinness was a renowned film and stage actor. He wasn't some fly-by-night. This guy had worked with some of the best directors of his era. But I think the lesson that we can take away from this, if you will, is that there's obviously a great deal of respect going into what they want to make this new Star Wars.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because you don't cast Max von Sydow without, you don't just give him a script and be like, "Here, say this," and he's like, "You kids won't get away with this," and just no.
He's gonna be great. I in my head, after reading the news and getting my senses back, I started thinking well, who's he gonna play? Is he gonna play a brand new character, or is he gonna play the old version of someone else? But then I'm thinking, well, Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, and Carrie Fisher are gonna play the old versions of themselves. So who is there left?
He's gonna play old Lando Calrissian.
Oh, and by the way, what the hell? I don't see him on the list.
Now this is a really weird thing. I don't know how into Star Wars you were as a Mythos Leon necessarily, but there was a whole load of stuff that came in novel format after the Star Wars movies, the Kevin J. Anderson novels and things like that everybody was so primed for. I've already seen photoshops of Max von Sydow done up as Admiral Thrawn.
Oh my god.
Which I would be so fucking super excited for. But they've basically out and out said that all of the continued novelizations are no longer canon.
Yeah, I did hear that.
Which is at once I'm kind of I understand that you want to do your own thing, but
Yeah.
And during that non-canon, apparently, at some point in time, I don't remember during which book it is, I'm just vaguely recalling on, when I had chicken pox when I was a 16-year-old. Yes, I got chicken pox when I was 16. And, in a fever reading through a bunch of Star Wars novels over the course of, a week or something like that, that Lando and Chewie at one point in time go off on a secret mission and disappear. But, I mean, Peter Mayhew's going to be in it, so presumably Chewie's gonna be in it.
Yeah, I mean, in the novels, I do know that in the novels, Chewbacca does die. He's confirmed to be dead in the novels, and that's why when they said Peter Mayhew was coming back, everyone was like, oh, that's going to be retcon. That is no longer valid because Chewbacca is alive.
So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe we'll just, we'll go into the theaters, and then all of a sudden Billy Dee Williams will turn around and be like, hi, I'm Billy Dee Williams.
He's not going to play Lando Calrissian.
He's not going to play Lando.
He's going to play Billy Dee Williams. Austin, you've been surprisingly quiet during all of this. You have not said even one word as soon as I said Star Wars. Do you have any interest in Star Wars at all?
I actually talked about this, I think, on the BT podcast before. I was really into Star Wars for a while, but over the years, my interest in the entire thing has kind of waned. I mean, I know when I saw the cast.
You don't say.
When I saw the cast list, I was like, oh, Andy Serkis, he's got all of them, right? That's cool. And then I clicked out of the window. That's as much thought as I put into this. I like the original movies. I like Knights of the Old Republic and Rogue Squadron and a couple other things. But, I probably won't even see these new movies in theaters.
Say that you like Jedi Outcast. Damn your eyes.
Are we going to argue about whether those are canon now? Apparently they're not supposed to be.
Apparently, what I heard was someone said the 6 movies are canon and nothing else really is.
Okay. What I heard was that Spock travels back in time and creates an alternate universe.
Oh...
Which is still technically canon if you consider Star Trek, Star Wars, and the Avengers to be a multiverse.
I actually think it's a good move to just axe all of the stuff that most people aren't familiar with because, I mean, Disney has a clean slate to work with. They can go in any direction they want, and they aren't beholden to someone else's bullshit fan fiction.
It would also really, really suck to have those people be like, why wasn't this scene in the novel which explicitly illustrates the nature of Admiral Thrawn's personal assassin bodyguard? You don't want to deal with that shit. Nobody wants to deal with that shit. I would do the exact same thing. I'd be like, I'm keeping Admiral Thrawn, and that's it. Go fuck yourselves.
Your fictional nerd there has a very fancy voice.
I just don't find the fiction of Star Wars that interesting.
He had to go to remedial speech school. He had a soft palate when he was growing up. So.
Okay.
You don't find the fiction of Star Trek interesting, Austin? Do you mean the fiction of it? Because I mean, it's pretty classic operatic stuff when you think about it.
You said Star Trek when you meant Star Wars.
I meant Star Wars.
I did that too, and I keep doing that too.
It's in the air now, and we're all drinking the Kool-Aid.
My favorite stars are in this order: Trek, Wars, Gate, and Search.
I haven't seen anything but Star Wars. I'm a terrible nerd.
You are. I mean, what the hell? I mean, I feel like we all have kind of like holes in our nerddom, and that's sort of okay. But the idea that never mind. I don't want to be a nerd snob, but you do genuinely suck, Austin.
No, I'm really super aware of how television is a whole in my personal nerd cred. I'm all about video games and literature and certain genres of music. But I quit BT on January 1st, right? And it is now, April 29th? I've spent the last 4 months doing nothing but watching TV. Just every single show, Breaking Bad, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, all this fucking anime. I'm catching up. I'm trying to fill this hole, but
I'll be honest with you, though, Austin. I think you picked the right place to have a gap in your nerddom, truth be told.
Well, the reason I did was because I found television so boring for years, but it's really picked up in the last decade or so, I feel.
It has, but that's what I mean, is that it's there's such a swath of things to draw from when you're a video game nerd or a comic nerd or a fucking movie nerd even, But television was all of a sudden some guy was how about we make a show for nerds? And then in 1997, boom. Which I know is not true because there are a lot of things that precede it. But I mean, Battlestar Galactica Classic, no thanks.
It's just like I really liked Star Wars, right, when I was like in middle school or whatever. I was super into it, like probably you guys are. But then I saw like Firefly and I played Mass Effect, and it's just like I can't go back to the shitty, pathetic universe they built. Like there's no magic to it anymore, having been exposed to much better sci-fi, I feel. I don't know. Maybe I don't have as much nostalgia for it.
You got a problem with midichlorians, son? Because I sure do.
I think everyone can agree on that. Yeah. It's not as special to me, I guess, anymore. But I'm planning on watching some Star Trek. It's just so much. There's like 4,000 episodes of it.
It's hard to pick a place to start. I mean, you could say let's start at the original series, but that's. I was going to go into this if Attack of the Trek actually was successful, but I'll just say it now. The original series, it's a hard watch sometimes. There's a joke on Futurama, and I'm going to get the numbers wrong, but it's something like where Fry is explaining the original series, and he's like, there were like 72 episodes, 16 good. And I think that sort of accurately explains the original series. Looking back on it with a critical, objective eye, I would say start. I was thinking about this the other day because some people I know have said that they don't watch Star Trek, but they want to get into it. The Next Generation is hard to get in from the first season as well because the first season and the second season suck. And it's just awful. The series premiere, Encounter at Farpoint, the 2-part episode, is just awful. It's just dreadful.
And the novelization of it is even worse.
I'm sorry, the novelization of it? Oh, I must have missed that one.
I'm actually not joking. I did not miss that one.
Oh. And Deep Space Nine, although in my opinion it's the best Trek, it's certainly my favorite. The first season is awful. Second season's good. First season you have to slog through a lot of crap.
Can't we all just find a Star Trek to agree upon?
Whoa! What the hell voice was that, Reverend?
That was my beleaguered Benjamin Sisko voice.
Yeah. It's hard to do Benjamin Sisko. And Voyager, and the weird thing is, although Voyager in most ways is lesser Trek compared to TNG and Deep Space Nine, the first season is comparatively not bad. It's more like it gets worse later on.
You begin to come to grips with the possibility that Captain Janeway might very well be a sociopath.
Right, and to me that's awesome. But in all seriousness, the first season of Voyager is better than the first season of TNG, and
it's the best sci-fi Dexter mashup I've ever seen.
I don't have time for slogging. I want a show to be good all the way through, or it's not really worth it.
First of all, there's no such thing, and that's not going to exist in. It's certainly not going to exist in Star Trek.
I'm not saying perfect all the way through, at least good all the way through.
I think you should start with True Detective Season 1.
I'm planning on watching that, as well as The Wire.
Yeah, Hannibal first season is good all the way through.
Actually, yeah, The Wire has got to be, like, hands down some of the best television I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
I've heard. I think there are plenty of shows that are good all the way through. I think Breaking Bad, House of Cards has been, through 2 seasons, has been really good so far. I'm watching that. That's super good. Boardwalk Empire.
So help me God, if you say Walking Dead, I will come to Florida and gut you.
No, we discussed Walking Dead. The second season's hilarious. Yeah. Not in a good way. Like, walking around the farm and
where's Carl? He's not in the house.
Oh, God. For anyone listening who did not see my big blog announcement about it, Attack of the Trek is actually canceled. I had to cancel it because the numbers were like below the basement. Just awful. My only big regret, since we're talking about television here and bad television, is that I never got to do the 2-part Voyager episode Year of Hell. And for anyone listening who is not,
oh God, yeah,
for anyone who has not seen that, basically the villain is Boddicker from RoboCop. or the dad from that 70s show, and he has a big time ship. He has a big time ship that changes time, and he's kind of like almost like a sympathetic villain, because even though he's changing time and like making certain people not exist and suddenly exist and like ruining the universe, he's doing it to save his family, because if he manipulates time just enough, his family will be fine on his planet and everything will be cool. But it's really screwing around with Voyager. So in order to save all the people on Voyager who had been like screwed up and died over this really horrible year, they have to destroy the time ship. So Janeway evacuates everyone, understandably, and she's going to ram Voyager into the time ship. And the thing is, realistically, she doesn't even have to be on Voyager for this to happen. Just dramatically, they wanted to get her in the chair to say, time's up, and blow up the Voyager by crashing into the ship. But she didn't have to be there. It made absolutely no sense. And Tuvok explains this to her. He just stands there, and I can't do a Tuvok voice, so I'm just going to say it in my own vernacular. He says, Captain, this is the 24th century. You see those giant iPads that we call steering wheels? Just get over there and press a bunch of future buttons, and that'll fly Voyager right into the time ship, and that'll save everything. If you're on the ship, and this stupid plan of ours doesn't work, then you're going to die, and then the crew who is floating out there in space and trying to find a new home is going to be without a captain. Have you thought about this? And she's like, I'm still going to do it. I'm still going to do it because the captain has to go down with the ship for no particular reason. And Tuvok's like, you really should reconsider. I'm a blind man at this point, because at this point Tuvok is actually blind. But even I can see that this is a terrible idea. Are you seriously going to do this? And Janeway's like, Totes Magotes, Black Spock. I'll see you in space hell. And then it's ridiculous. And then she just fucking does it. She rams Voyager right into the time ship. She says, time's up. And then she just Deus Ex the fuck out of that machina. And then it all goes right back to the beginning. And everything's super cool. And even the villain is okay, because somehow the time blast ripped the continuum of time, and then he's back with his family, and Boddicker is okay.
You know what that conversation is, though, right, Leon? That's like, at that point in time, I'm like, oh my god, she's a maniac, because that's Tuvok going, Captain, put down the knife. No! Put down the knife. No!
It's just not the same listening to Leon talk about Star Trek with a gangster rap in the background.
Yeah, sorry.
I gotta love that the episodes that they were called like the Year of Hell.
Yeah.
And by and large, you skip the Year of Hell.
Yeah.
It's like some really bad things happen at the beginning, and then it's like a year later. God, that was some pretty serious hell.
Anyway, if we should probably move on to the second topic that we were going to talk about, so we can get at least two in, hopefully all three. I believe, Austin, you wanted to talk about something that was unearthed a few days ago.
Yeah, Microsoft, as I guess a publicity stunt, they funded a team to go out into the New Mexico desert and debunk the rumor that Atari buried like every copy of E.T. the Extraterrestrial for the 2600 in the desert. And they found them, apparently. There's photos of people like in front of the dig site holding the cartridges, and they got like shredded manuals and boxes, and apparently there's some other games in there too. Some people think it's fake. Have you guys been following this thing?
I heard the story. It did smell a little fishy, but I want to believe. I want to either believe the lie or believe the truth. I'm like Fox Mulder looking up at that poster. I want to believe.
I know of it. I don't really have any reason to passionately exclaim my position on either side. Because I gotta be honest with you, if a bunch of guys decided to bury something that they didn't think that they could sell in the middle of the desert some fucking, 35 years ago, I gotta say that's some pretty creative waste management.
Isn't that illegal? You can't just bury your trash without a permit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the statute of limitations may be up, but you may be right.
Yeah.
Who's to say they didn't get a permit?
I guess. I mean, I haven't found how they were even able to find the site. Is it just somebody, I guess, was one of the guys who programmed the game was at the event. Like, maybe he told them where it was or something.
Apparently he cried like a little kid.
He had like a big map with like a red X on it.
No. What he had was a big map that had a bunch of little Reese's Pieces leading from the office he developed it at to its eventual resting place.
It's a shame that this happened because now we'll never have National Treasure 3.
If there's any justice in the world, they fell in like 8 pits on their way to the dig site. Oh, God.
And they always had a guy in a trench coat and a hat following after them who would put them in a jail that was really easy to get out of.
I haven't actually played the game.
I have.
You have? I have not. I had an Atari, but I never played that. What is it really like, Johnny?
You know what? I think the thing that people often forget about Atari 2600 games is that they were all really fucking obtuse. Like, there were the easy ones where it was like, oh, hey, go this way and shoot things, or build a burger, or you have to catch the crook, or, avoid having flower pots thrown on your head. But, like, when it actually came to people who tried, like, deeper storytelling, like Adventure, I don't know if any of you guys have ever played Adventure or seen Adventure for the Atari.
I know of it. I've seen gameplay video of it, but I've never actually played it myself.
How in God's name does E.T. get the shaft and Adventure get a free pass? It makes no goddamn sense.
I was all about Missile Command. That was my thing.
I mean, like Atari, it succeeded well at simple, here is your screen, do these things. So, in that sense, I mean, E.T. was no Missile Command, it was no fucking, like, Berserk, it was no Tron, but it was just like, it was as inscrutable as any of their other high-concept games.
Maybe because it was such a big franchise that's why it has that notoriety.
Well, what the fuck were you expecting?
Fair enough.
I mean, it wasn't like, I can point to other games that are just as obtuse, but still based around big franchises that came at way, way later in game development history. I mean, there's always Back to the Future 1 and 2 for the NES, or sorry, it's 1 and then 2 and 3 for the Nintendo Entertainment System. Back to the Future 1 for the NES, so obtuse, like just nuts, stupid, crazy. Like it was an early period for video games, and in the first place, for anybody to be like, wow, we should make an E.T. game. Unless you're like Telltale Games, I don't see that ending up well.
No.
I don't even like E.T. the movie.
Really? I thought it was okay. I actually saw it for the first time like 2 years ago. It was pretty good. I watched it with some friends, and we had a good time. I believe it was the version with the walkie-talkies instead of guns, because we all made a big comment about that. But I thought it was fine. I thought it was pretty decent, clean entertainment.
Yeah, it's okay.
How could you not like it, Austin? Because it's all about how love saves this alien who is killed by the power of bureaucracy.
Is that what it's about?
When a bunch of kids band together and save their friend with love? Huh?
Speaking of the power of love, Leon, I know you're still playing Tales of Graces.
I'm playing it so hard.
So I started Tales of Zillia, and I picked up Tales of Symphonia, and I'm thinking how many Tales games I can get through before you finish.
I have Tales of Zillia as well. It's sitting right. I can see it from my microphone. It's standing here. But I won't be playing it until I finish Tales of Graces F. by Christmas or something. So, I'll tell you what, I haven't gotten that much further since last time we talked. Next, I'll give you updates, and you can tell me how you're getting along in Symphonia. We'll just have Tails Corner for like 5 minutes of this show.
Yeah.
Want to say anything more about E.T. before we move on to our super serious topic that Johnny's been cooking up?
I just want to say I think Superman 64 is the worst game ever, not E.T.
Okay.
Because that game is just not functional. Or I guess Cheetah Men.
Big Rigs Over the Road Racing?
Ah, damn, that's another good one. Because everyone gives E.T. so much shit, but his game works. It's just bad.
See, I don't play bad games as a general rule. I investigate games before I buy them, and then I just never play them. That's how my life kind of works. The only so-called bad game that I played in like truly bad game that I played past few years was Deadly Premonition, but it's not bad. It's in a way it's bad objectively, but not subjectively. To me, it's great.
It's bad, interesting bad.
Yeah, objectively, I could say Duke Nukem Forever is extremely flawed, but subjectively, I really loved it. So I haven't really had a truly bad gaming experience that except for Witcher 2. Which is not
stop baiting me.
Which is not a bad game. It's not a bad game at all. That's what I'm saying. I don't really play. I never play a bad game that I hate. I either play a flawed game that I enjoy or a good game that doesn't appeal to me. So anyway, I'm done talking about games now.
I wanted to hear Johnny go off on The Witcher.
No, Leon and I have talked about it. I realized it was a gamble being like, hey, you might like this, which is why, he only, I think it was like $3 or $4 or something.
It wasn't a big gamble.
So yeah, I felt okay about that. I was like, I'm sorry I steered you wrong. I thought you might like it. Because, I felt like it had strong characters and a compelling universe, but to each their own.
Yeah.
It was just too PC for him.
It really was. It really was. It was just, but I'm still glad I paid the $3 and played it, because if nothing else, it was the final nail in the coffin where I can just completely say, I've played so many Western RPGs. I don't need to keep trying them anymore. I played Witcher 2. I played one of the Elder Scrolls game. I played one of the Fables game. I played a Fable game. I played Fallout 3. I played those are 4 huge franchises right there. There may be one more that I'm forgetting here, but yeah.
No, I think you got the groundwork right there to be like, nope.
Yeah. I mean, I'm kind of done. I admit Deus Ex, that the new one, the one that looks all gold and stuff, looks cool, but I still don't feel like it because I've been burned too many times. I'm done.
It's barely even an RPG. I mean,
it's like a stealth shooter with RPG elements.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure it would appeal to you one way or the other.
Okay, Johnny, you want to get serious on us?
Yeah.
America. I speak to you from Canada, your neighbor to the north, often referred to as America's Hat, or as we affectionately refer to you, Canada's Tidy Whities. Very recently in the news, your FCC has kind of come up as being a little interested in changing the way that your internet works down there. In case you haven't known, the FCC, of course, regulating most televising communications and other assorted exchange of information that goes on in America. Well, the new guy in charge of the FCC, Tom Wheeler, has decided that net neutrality, as they like to say it, is kind of up for debate. He seems to think that it would be perfectly fine to allow internet service providers the power to be able to determine whether or not you can get your content undiluted over the internet, or whether or not they determine that a premium fee might be necessary, both from your content providers or the customers, possibly both. What does that mean? Well, that means that pretty soon you might be paying a little bit of extra money, both to your ISP and to your content providers, who have to offset the cost of a charge that your ISPs are now levying against them to give you the content that you want. Content providers like Netflix, or publications like Time Magazine or the New York Times, or even possibly search engines like Google or, God forbid, Bing. Can you please try and do something about this? Because as much as the rest of the world likes to pretend that the U.S. isn't as big as the breeches that they wear to international meetings, without your participation in a global community, everything shrinks. And I mean this earnestly. Because basically what we're talking about is consumers having to pay money to a lot of ISPs, internet service providers, that also manage your cable content. And if they manage your cable content, and then they can levy fees against you using Netflix or Hulu or, let's say, other services that only tangentially relate, like YouTube or Blip. And they can start charging these content providers money that then goes to the consumer, as well as charging the consumer this money because maybe they want more people to get on cable TV, or maybe they just want to take a couple more dollars out of your wallet. That's going to make the internet a terrible thing. Do you know how many Nickelback music videos there are?
What? Is that a rhetorical question, or are Austin and I supposed to answer? Or is America supposed to answer?
The answer is very simple. Too many. I don't care how many Nickelback videos there are. There's too many of them. And they're a Canadian act.
Johnny's taking a bold stance against Nickelback, the most beloved band in Oregon.
That fruit isn't low hanging at all.
Yeah, well, but no, he's right though. Still right.
It's like, America's great. I love America. I think your political system is kind of fucked up, and your tax system is fucked up, and your healthcare is fucked up. Your banking system's kind of fucked up, too. There's a lot of fucked up things. But you're like that girlfriend that I just can't quit.
America is pretty hot.
Hot.
Just crazy. All right.
Because it's all about confidence. It's all about attitude.
Yeah.
If you walk into the room and you feel like you're the hottest piece of ass in there, people see it. They're like, whoa, that's some hot shit.
And you can get away with anything if you're hot enough. It doesn't matter.
Sometimes America walks in and says, whoa, I'm hot shit, and everybody wants to fuck me. And that's way different.
That is an amazing impression, by the way. That is an amazing impression.
But I mean, something's got to be done about this. I mean, FCC, net neutrality, I mean, Austin, Leon, do I even have to ask you guys how you feel about the possibility of your ISP being like, oh, hey, you like paying $30 a month for your internet? Do you want to use Google? That'll be $5 more.
Yeah. Comcast is literally the devil.
Yeah, I have Comcast because that's what I have and that's what's in the area. So we'll just have to wait and see how this shakes out. I'm not overly optimistic, but maybe it's just one of those things that everyone revolts against and then it stops. But I don't know. This is the thing.
It hasn't gone through yet. Okay?
No, good. I guess.
You can write letters. Believe me, like, a similar thing came up in Canada a couple of years ago with what we call the CRTC, which is basically our equivalent of the FCC. And, like, people fucking lost their shit. They threw down. and wrote some really angry Canadian letters.
Are angry Canadian letters still really polite?
I believe oftentimes they start with "Pardon me,"
but loudly.
But with underline.
Okay. All right. Well, guys, we really do gotta head out soon. Johnny, any closing thoughts about the destruction of the internet?
Well, no.
No?
No, because eventually, it's not gonna be a problem for me. I'm Canadian. I mean, you guys are neutering yourselves.
We are.
If that's gonna be the case. And I mean, it's gonna be shit because all of a sudden it's gonna be not like, in Canada we can't legally access things like Hulu or like American Netflix or anything like that. Anyways, we can't do it because you have this weird kind of like closed off. No, nobody looks at any of our stuff.
We have a cloaking device over Netflix. It's
not even a cloaking device, man. It's like it's kind of like just out and out. No. Sorry. We'll let you know if it ever happens. But that's going to create a weird creative vacuum in the rest of the world.
Yeah.
And that means that the rest of the world is going to suddenly become way more culturally relevant to everything.
Well,
so,
on that downer, we gotta bail. I'm Leon Thomas, signing off. Johnny, Austin, you want to say anything before we go? Perhaps
depressed.
Stay depressed. Okay. Austin, anything?
Actually, real quick, someone's been posting in the comments on our videos on Tigwatig asking about when BT's coming back. I don't know. I guess that's really the takeaway. We don't know. I'm not in charge of that. None of us are in charge of that. We have no say in that. Yeah. That's always been above our control and pay grade. So we have no news. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So, excuse me. Someone's also been complaining about our ignorant talk of Stephen King. We're gonna. I only mention it because I want to talk about Stephen King every episode now.
Good.
For spite.
I've only read the one book. I admit to my ignorance.
We're gonna have to start a Stephen King book club just so he can talk about it. But we'll talk about that another time.
Just get the reference in there so you can.
Yeah, that's it. But we're gonna go now. Stay depressed.
I thought we were staying Chupacabra.
That was last week.
We're always staying something. Which means we're never staying anything because we keep changing. Wow. I just hurt myself.
Deep.
Goodbye.
We're not good at ending these things.
No, we're really not. We're absolutely not.